Is Frankenstein really a monster? I need to start with pop culture on this one. When I was really little and someone said monster, most kids would think of the Universal monsters, the black and white classics: Dracula, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Mummy, and Frankenstein. Frankenstein seemed to be the popular one. And the Frankenstein we knew was, of course, the 1931 movie with Boris Karloff. I can't really call the movie a classic, but it's definitely iconic. The only thing it has going for it is the fact that it's the source for the iconic images and pop culture references. It defined the image of the monster. It gave us the gathering of parts from dead bodies to make the monster, using lightning to create life, and of course the ever popular scene of the manic doctor screaming, "It's alive! It's alive!" But it's also the source of the dumb, grunting killer monster. In the movie, there's no chance to ever see the monster as anything else. What most people know of Frankenstein is, of course, from Boris Karloff, and even then, most people haven't seen that version. Somewhere along the line, the name Frankenstein was tied to the brute. That's why in pop culture, this is Frankenstein. But the question still stands. Is Frankenstein a monster? I have recently read Mary Shelley's original story, and now that I'm older and better read, I know that Frankenstein is in fact the mad scientist, and the monster never gets a name. I also recently made a point of seeking out the 1931 version of Frankenstein. The difference between the two is night and day. The original book is very much a sci-fi story. It's an exploration of humanity. The 1931 movie, Frankenstein, is very much a horror movie, and honestly, not a very good one. There's no opening act, the plot doesn't have any real progression. Things kind of skip from one point to another without any logic. Suddenly there's angry villagers, a fight scene between the monster and Dr. Frankenstein, the monster dies, and the doctor recovers in bed, with a small army of housemaids pining after him. The end. It lacks depth. There's no motivation for why anyone central to the story does anything. Especially the monster killing. The original story is worth reading. There's more meat to it. For starters, Frankenstein's creation starts out benevolent. In spite of the fact that Dr. Frankenstein ghosts minutes after his creature comes to life. Literally runs from the laboratory, never saying a word to the life he just created. The creation also becomes multilingual, in at least 3 languages. It becomes well-read, looks way more human. The only thing that sets the monster apart from everyone else is the fact that it's 8 foot tall, has glowing eyes and black lips. It doesn't have any scars or stitches. The story as a whole is very tragic, and in the end you almost feel sorry for both Dr. Frankenstein and his creation. The creation tries many times to make friends with humans. He hides in a hog hovel for a long while, anonymously cutting wood and doing other chores for the peasants who he hides next to. Even saves a little girl from drowning. Every time he's rejected and persecuted, finally declaring revenge on Dr. Frankenstein for bringing him into such a cruel world and then abandoning him with no companionship. And you feel sorry for the creature. But this is where the body count starts, and it's understandable why the creation starts killing, namely members of Frankenstein's family and household. You could say that the creation becomes monstrous after being treated poorly by humans. But is Dr. Frankenstein a monster? I'll admit, it's a hard argument to make. We only know the creation as a monster, a demon, and an abomination because that's all Dr. Frankenstein calls it. Most of the story is told through the doctor's point of view. Because we hear things from his point of view, we tend to favor him as the protagonist. So we tend to overlook some rather glaring behavior from the doctor. We call the creation a monster because the doctor calls his creation a monster. It's worth noting that Dr. Frankenstein is prone to obsession. He was obsessed with studying alchemy and science, later obsessed with creating life, and finally he was obsessed with killing his creation, obsessed to the point that it does him in. When he was obsessed with creating life, it ended abruptly. He achieved his goal and turns his back on it, and runs from it. And that is a high-speed 180 that definitely needs a Eurobeat. Because the entire time the doctor is building his creation, he's dreaming of how beautiful it will be. And this is a sudden change, with no explanation. And the doctor's actions here have a definite negative effect on the creation. It's the first step in an ongoing hostility towards his creation. And the doctor's hostility is the foundation for the creature's murder spree. So far the doctor just sounds like a jerk. But then there's the murder trial. He lets an innocent woman hang knowing full well he could have saved her. The creation's first victim was the doctor's younger brother. The death of little Frankenstein is blamed on a servant who worked for the Frankenstein family. Dr. Frankenstein knows that the young woman was falsely accused, and he knows who really killed his brother, but he doesn't ever speak up because he doesn't want to admit that he made the murderer. It's the lack of remorse that really pushes the doctor into the monster zone. He feels bad that the young woman died, but doesn't accept blame for not stopping it. He's dismissive of the creation's suffering and misery. He doesn't care that the creation just wanted companionship of some kind. On his deathbed, the doctor does say that he is responsible for everything that happened. But his regret is just the fact that he created a living thing. Not the fact that he failed to teach it how to live, how to interact with people, or that he abandoned a helpless living thing. There's a lot to cover when it comes to Dr. Frankenstein and his creation. Their relationship and interaction is the story. But I should talk about the other relationships in the doctor's life. Remember when I said the doctor ghosts on his own creation? He did that to his own family and friends for several years and more than once, even though they actively tried to contact him. He was actively choosing isolation over them. He thought very poorly of people as a whole. He referred to them as unclean animals and thinks himself above them. He married his adopted sister more out of a sense of ownership than anything else. Now, the one thing that the movie does a better job of showing is Dr. Frankenstein's God complex. He really did think that being able to create life would prove that he was above everyone else. The answer to whether or not Frankenstein is a monster can really only be answered if you compare the two. The heartless, selfish doctor versus the creature that was just seeking acceptance and companionship. Happy Halloween. Thanks for watching, and good luck. To subscribe, click the channel icon on the top left. Top right is the previous video, and below that is a random suggestion from YouTube. Thanks again.